repeat all that, man.
Hey, welcome back to the Rock Fantasy Files. Tonight we're going to set the time machine back to 1975 to chat on an album that's going to be celebrating its 50th anniversary next month as we're taping here on January 29th. The album we're going to chat about is Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti. Here's a little bit about the release I just grabbed off the internet just to give the viewers that don't know much of, if someone's watching and don't know much about the record. It's Physical Graffiti is the sixth album by the English rock band Led Zeppelin. It's released as a double album on February 24th, 1975 in the United States, and then February 28th, 75 in the UK. It was the group's first album that were released under their new label with Swan Song Records. The band wrote and recorded 8 new songs for the album in early 74 at Headley Grange, a country house in Hampshire, which gave them ample time to improvise the arrangements and experiment with recording. The total playing time covered just under 3 sides of an LP, so they decided to expand it to a double album, including previously unreleased tracks from the sessions for the band's earlier albums, Led Zeppelin 3, Led Zeppelin 4, Houses of the Holy from 73 also. The album covered a range of styles, including hard rock, progressive rock, rock and roll, and some tinges of folk. The album was then mixed over the summer of 74 and planned for an end of the year release. However, its release was delayed because Peter Corsten designed the die cut album cover proved difficult to manufacture. That's the notes I have. Correct me if anything else is wrong. Physical Graffiti was a commercially and critically successful upon its release and debuted at #1 on the album charts in the UK, #3 in the United States. It was promoted by a successful US tour and a 5-night residency at Earl's Court, London. The album has been reissued on CD several times, including an expansive 40th anniversary edition in 2015. Physical Graffiti was later certified 16 times platinum in the United States, signifying shipments of over 8 million copies in the US. The first attempt by Led Zeppelin to record songs for Physical Graffiti took place in November 73 at Headley Grange in Hampshire, England, where they previously recorded their untitled fourth album. The recording equipment consisted of Ryan Lane's mobile studio. Guitarist and producer Jimmy Page and drummer John Bonham recorded an instrumental, which was later reworked as KASHMIR during this visit. However, these sessions came to a halt quickly. And the studio time was turned over to Bad Company, who used it to record songs for their debut album. The press reported the bassist keyboardist John Paul Jones was ill and unable to record. However, he had become disillusioned with the group and tired of touring, and told manager Peter Grant he was considering quitting. Grant asked him to reconsider and take the rest of the year to recuperate. The group reconvened at Headley Grange in January and February 74, where they recorded 8 tracks, engineered by Ron Nevison. Lead singer Robert Grant later referred to these 8 tracks as the Belchers, including the off-the-wall stuff that turned out really nice. With previous sessions at Headley Grange, the informal atmosphere allowed the group to improvise and develop material while recording. Sometimes the group would rehearse or record a track several times, discuss what went wrong and could be improved, and then realize they'd worked out an alternative arrangement for it, which was better. Bonham was the driving force of the sessions, regularly suggesting ideas of best ways a complicated arrangement could be played successfully, led him to get a lead songwriting credit on several tracks. So the songs on the album spanned several years of recording and covered a range of musical styles, including hard rock, Custard Pie, The Rover, The Wonton Song, Sick Again, Houses of the Holy, Eastern influence orchestral rock with KASHMIR, progressive rock in the light, driving funk with Trampled Underfoot, acoustic rock and rock and roll, Boogie with Stu, Black Country Woman, a love ballad, 10 Years Go On, blues rock, In My Time of Dying, and soft rock with Down by the Seaside, a country rock romp with Night Flight and acoustic guitar instrumental, Bron Y.R. Several albums from the tracks became live staples of Led Zeppelin concerts, in particular In My Time of Dying, Trampled Underfoot, KASHMIR, 10 Years Gone, Black Country Woman, and Sick Again became regular components of the band's live concert set lists following the release of the album. Well, anyhow, that was my long-winded intro. I hope I did okay. Maybe some of the Zeppelin experts here are going to say, hey, some of that was wrong. You read that off of the internet. That was probably fake news. But anyhow, I did the best I could.
Probably get that on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
It does. You sounded right on mark to me.
Cool.
I think they were using Ronnie Lane's mobile studio. I think I remember hearing because
Okay.
the Rolling Stones mobile studio was being used by someone else. I'm trying to remember who it was. Somebody else's name.
Okay.
So
Very good. Anyhow, I've asked my guests tonight to pick their top three favorite tracks from each album. But joining us tonight, I have a couple special guests from the band KASHMIR who did a Spirit of Led Zeppelin live. They are embarking on an international tour, I see, performing this album in its entirety on the tour. And who do we have joining us from tonight from the group? Introduce yourselves. I guess start off with Gene. How are you?
Hi, I'm Gene Violet. I'm the lead vocalist.
Okay.
Mhm.
Who we got down there? David.
David, my name is David Blampied, and I'm the percussionist
Cool.
for this endeavor.
Great, great. Gene, tell us a little bit about the band.
The band started way back in 2000. It's evolved. Probably went through about 18 different members since its inception. And the whole idea was I was signed to a Japanese label back in 2000. I used to live in New York City, and I played in a band called Naked City. And the band was just on the, everything was turning grunge. We were a really hard rock vampire from New York City band. So I wound up getting a phone call from a Japanese label that was at one of our shows at the Cat Club. Next thing you know, I'm in Tokyo and I did a 2 year um, recording deal with a Japanese label. So on my off time, I had a very good friend named Jimmy K. Bones who does a lot of studio stuff. He's a guitar player that does the Monday Night Football. He does a lot of ABC and network jingles. So for fun, we wanted to play at Kenny's Castaways, and we said, you know what? Why don't we try like a Zeppelin tribute? Or we didn't even call it a tribute back then. We just called it a Zeppelin cover. And there was another band at the time called Four Sticks that was playing on Bleecker. So we said, yeah, let's do it. So we did it, and it was very successful. We got a lot of people coming to the shows, and we were even invited to be the uh, New York City Hawks indoor football arena house band, like the Paul Schaefer band
Wow.
from Madison Square Garden. So as this was going on, several of the players in the band were actually studio musicians. So I saw the potential of, I said, this thing could really take off, and I could probably branch this out to theaters. And my goal was to play from bars to theaters to outdoor events and network like that. It took like about 15 years, but that's where we are now. And that band first was called Time of Dying, and then that band kind of dissipated because of the studio guys. And then I decided to create KASHMIR, and we started in New York City, branched out to Jersey, and then I got an agent involved, which then we started playing, upstate New York, started doing the New England, and now We've played as far west as playing for Chris Martin of Coldplay for a personal birthday party. His girlfriend, Dakota Johnson, is a huge Zeppelin fan. So we played for her 30th birthday in Malibu about a year, 2 years
Wow.
ago, and it was pretty wild. And then we played as far north as some places in Canada, and now we're looking to go to England as well.
Wow.
In March, we're going to be playing in Cuba, and that's going to be one of the rare opportunities. Not too many bands get to play Cuba, and it's through some people that I know. And if anybody's interested, it's a charter event, so you can go on our website and look that up.
Oh, cool.
Hmm.
All right. So, and we'll talk a little bit about the performance we should expect because your next stop is right here in Middletown, New York. If you're in the area, you could walk from Rock Fantasy to the venue, and you could go have a nice meal at one of the restaurants downtown. And Equilibrium Brewery is you can see the theater from the brewery. You could stop by and have a couple drinks before you go to the show. And so, what do we expect from the performance on Saturday night?
Do you want to say anything, Dave? Or
Yeah, just some blistering, authentically played Led Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm.
And we're, like you mentioned, we're covering the Physical Graffiti album and adding other material from other albums. So it's a very busy, packed show with some really wonderful moments scattered about. It's really, for me, it's it's the dream gig because I just, even though I've played these songs so many times, they're still challenging to play, and it's still a joy to play them. So I'm extremely enthusiastic about it, and for me, the Middletown show is going to be pretty cool because I was born in Horton Hospital,
Me too.
right down the road there, and I grew up a mile from this theater. And I remember going there as a kid. I know for a fact that I saw Dizzy Gillespie in that theater. Can't tell you what year it was.
Wow.
But it was a long time ago. And I know I saw, pretty sure I saw George Carlin.
Yeah, he was there before. Yeah.
Yep. And I remember seeing Robert Klein do a stand-up show there too.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I grew up going to this theater. I didn't really go to see, like you said, you saw the Song Remains the Same there.
Yeah, that's full circle for me because back in like whenever that movie came out, I think it was at 78, I think it might have came out.
76.
76, all right, 76. I went to a Saturday afternoon showing of The Song Remains the Same. So it'll be and then, I was, back then it was just a movie theater. Back in the 60s and 70s is where you went to the movies. That was closed, I believe, for a while. And then they started doing the concerts. They do movies again now. I actually saw the Bob Marley movie last spring, and I was telling some of the, I have a lot of friends that work there, and it's like this is the first time I saw a rock movie in here since I saw Led Zeppelin Song Remains the Same. So yeah, it's a nice theater. A lot of nice places around town, like I mentioned, where you can have something to eat and spend a day, and definitely come by Rock Fantasy and look at my records and play some pinballs. We have the Led Zeppelin pinball machine there, so maybe you guys want to stop and check that out before the show or after.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Yeah.
It's funny. The house I grew up in, which is about a mile from the theater down East Main Street, was gigantic Victorian building. It was absolutely it was a massive house. You compare it, to, I mean, they build big houses now, but for then it was, 1800s whenever it was built. But when my sisters went to college and moved out, I ended up taking my drum set and moving it up to the attic of this house. And the entire house was like a giant subwoofer when I played the drum. It was so loud. It was but it was a big sound,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even a small kit sounded absolutely massive in that attic. So I have some good memories of tormenting some neighbors on Woodlawn Avenue as a kid. In the summertime, man, that's all I did was play. I went from the bed to the drum stool and started playing right off the bat. A lot of times it was to this album too.
Cool. Maybe we asked Gene a little bit of his history. Why don't we ask you the same question? You're playing in KASHMIR now. Other bands have you performed with over the years?
I played in Bridges to Quadrophenia, which was it was a Who show.
That's cool.
And I've done like everything from like the absolute worst shows to the absolute best shows. I started playing when I was really young. I was very much encouraged by my parents to play. And my mother was a fan of the instrument, and she got me into it right away. I never even really decided to play drums. It was sort of like, hey, try this, and it stuck. You know what I mean? I continued with it, but it was in a lot of original bands in California and in New York. I was in California for a little while playing. So, but it's hard to measure success in the music industry. You know what I mean? Because it's but this is the best possible gig for me, man, because I am definitely a disciple of not just Bonham, but like the whole the whole catalog, and the band itself is just very influential on me. So
one of the things too that we're really pushing, this band in particular, and we started to do this, as I said before, the band's always evolving. So one of the things that we are making it very clear to our audience is we're trying to push a lot more of, as we call it, the spirit of Led Zeppelin live. So we're trying to make people feel as if they just went back into a time machine, and it's the whole process of going to a Led Zeppelin show, pulling up in the parking lot, having a couple beers, doing whatever, you know what I mean? And then the buzz about just going to the show. And then when you're at the show, we're trying to do the we're kind of mixing a live performance with studio cuts. Like these guys will go off into tangents and do things live that I know, like they'll do, like, let's do 1971 Zeppelin in LA Forum, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And I try to maintain the melody of the studio so that the average person that's a Zeppelin fan doesn't get, like, if I sing some of the live stuff that Plant did, some of it wasn't always that good. And some people are going to be like, that guy can't sing. You know what I mean? So by me keeping the melodies and the vocals more like the record, and then Dave and our guitar player, they do this thing with Stairway to Heaven. They do like A Song Remains the Same thing, and it's like spot on. We just played in New York last Thursday, and we had a whole bunch of guys, like I call them the Get the Let Out fans, and I mean they're coming in, and now they all look in there, and he's doing the Stairway solo, or he's doing, and they know it. Like I had one guy at one place go 1975. He said 1973, 1973. And I'm looking, I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? And it's like he goes, you guys did the Song Remains the Same. You did Since I've Been Loving You. You did it just like that. And I'm just, and that's what he was doing, the guitar player. But I was singing the melodies, like, but it's working. And then you want, at the end of the show, people, I remember as a kid when you saw a really good concert, everybody had the t-shirt on for the whole week at school, and it was the buzz, everybody was, I saw Guns N' Roses at the Ritz, and it was just like the buzz that happened when you're going home. So we're trying to create that whole live spirit thing and combining it with the music.
Yeah.
And we're
So,
doing,
so should I bring some M80s for like the spirit of I'm gonna bring a handful of M80s.
That part of the 70s we don't want to bring back, I think, at the shows.
All right.
Ralph, don't take the brown acid, Ralph.
I remember going to, I'm old enough to go to shows in the 70s, so and I remember like going to shows where there's firecrackers going off around you, there's bottles of broken glass shattering while you're trying to watch the Outlaws or Ted Nugent.
Well, it's one of the things that makes this material so fulfilling to play is these Zeppelin songs, for the most part. There's some songs that had a structure and they stayed with us, like the arrangement to the Rain song cannot be messed with too much, because it's already sort of like, the appeal of that song is the arrangement. So, you know what I mean? To put like a center section in there that's filled with improv really probably didn't work for songs like that. But a lot of these songs, I kind of the way that I put it is they're sort of born in the studio, but they grow up on stage, you know, like the first album with Dazed and Confused, which was, I think the running time was like 7 minutes, but you know, in a short few years, 4 or 5 years, it's 29 minutes long,
Mhm.
you know, and it's filled with all these expansive and creative parts. And you know, even like that song even gave birth to other songs because they would come up with some sort of improv part in the middle, and it would later become Walter's Walk, or you know, something that didn't make it onto an album until later on, you know.
Cool. I guess I ought to introduce the rest of the staff. Or guy, or did I do it? No. We got Obi staying up all night in Norway, one of our regulars. We got the Count Ralphus, our local metal historian, with us. We got Tony Dio from North Carolina, and we got James Delisle from Disc and Dat Records and Crucial Pain with us. And I think I started off before we started taping, just saying I started listening to this album right around when I talked to Dave on the phone the other day. I'm like, hey, you want to do physical graffiti? We're planning on doing that. Would you join us? Are you free Wednesday night? And immediately I dug my album out and just started playing it in the store. I've been listening to it at the gym, listening to it walking the dog. And it's just, I go from picking 3 favorite songs and go, no, man, this other song's really good. You keep listening to it. You get it in your head too. And it's such a great record. But David, you were talking a little bit about how you had the cassette back in school and you were
I somehow acquired a Walkman when I was a kid. I didn't have any money, so it must have been a gift, I'm guessing. But I went through a lot of batteries with that thing, and that Walkman was like my constant companion for a while. Now it's you got earbuds with your phone, but back in the day, you know, Walkmans. But what I was saying was, like, when I left the house, you know, I didn't want to load up my pockets with tape cassettes. So you pick one, and you know, at least me, I would say this is the cassette I'm going to listen to, the album, and you consumed it like you would consume a book, you know, from beginning to end, you know. And if you wanted to fast forward or rewind, it was a pain in the ass. It's not like, you know, now it's so easy to skip, you know, and just play snippets. But to consume the album in the way that it was intended from beginning to end, you know, and like I said, I would walk to school with it, you know what I mean? And then they would get on a bus and go to Bosie's or whatever. And I would listen to it there. And so, you know, I've sort of been listening to this album for a long time and picking out the nuances. And one of the things that's kind of, I sort of, in a way, almost regret listening to it, but the rehearsal tapes for this album, they was just, you know, hit record, and they've all probably mostly been released by now. At least I've heard a lot of different early versions of, you know, In My Time of Dying and The Wanton Song and In the Light, and a lot of them are just drastically different than what they ended up being on the album. And it throws you off a little bit because you can see the different roads they could have gone down, you know, with the arrangements of these songs. And it's difficult to wrap your mind around that because I've had such a steady diet of the final product that when you do hear the beginnings of this, it's really weird, you know. But you know, you listen to a song like In My Time of Dying, and you know, because I've listened to it a million times, just the drum part is, and the guitar part, and all the parts are sort of like set in stone. You know what I mean? And then when you listen to when Bonham was first figuring out what to play on drums with that, you can hear that it was like, you could tell that just in the way that he was talking with the other people in the room, it's like, when am I supposed to play with this, man? You know, because it's kind of a strange drum part, to be honest with you. And I'm not going to say it's extremely hard to play, but it's one of those tunes that it's like, you got to focus on what you're doing while you're playing it, because it's real easy to mess up. And when you do, it's real obvious, you know? So, it's just
cool. It's cool going from listening to those rehearsals like that. But the thing is, usually they're so different because a producer comes in and takes those songs and builds it into something else. But it's Jimmy Page that produces the album.
Yeah.
So that's what's kind of weird. It's like he's the one that produced it.
Yeah.
And it changes so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think when they first started recording the album, I think it was Page and Bonham and Plant working. I don't think Jones was there early on.
Yeah, that's what they were saying. Yeah.
There's like a lot of like very guitar driven stuff on the album, which is, that's what I like, so I like everything in it, I'm a fan of the rock and stuff for sure.
Yep. Cool. Does anybody in our panel have any questions for Gene or David before we go around, and maybe you got something you'd like to ask them about?
I'll ask him about that he's got. I see he's got the Bonham tattoo there, symbol.
Oh, you saw that?
Yeah, it's fucking cool. You must have been itching your arm or something before, but I was like, oh shit.
Well, I was gonna get the rest of the symbols, but I ran out of money.
So that's the perfect one to get, though. Yeah.
Buy some tickets. Maybe I'll get the rest of this filled out.
Yeah. And by the way, if you're watching this, tickets are still available, so don't think it's sold out yet. You can still get tickets here in Middletown for the show.
Yes, absolutely.
ParamountTheater.com. I don't know what the exact website is. I probably should know that already, but the Paramount Theater, Google it, Middletown, New York. There's a couple of Paramount Theaters. We're the one in Middletown. So yeah, come out to the show.
Awesome.
James, anything you'd like to ask?
What's both of your guys' absolute favorite Led Zeppelin song to play live?
My favorite right now would be my favorite is In My Time of Dying.
Okay.
That's my favorite song.
Well, I'm gonna take this as just a step further, because it's like I like playing all the songs, but from a drumming perspective, I honestly think that it might be my favorite song, period, to play on drums, is the Wanton song, because the snare bass drum combination in that song and like the absolute he's playing so far in the backbeat on that 2 and 4 with the snare drum in that song that it's like it's so in the pocket. It's ridiculous, you know what I mean? But Bonham was like a fan of like funk drumming,
Oh yeah.
and the Motown guys. But there's something about that song. It's like it drives forward really well, and it's a blast to play on drums because of the accents and the rhythm pattern. It's up there for sure.
Cool.
Sweet.
Tony, anything you want to ask?
So you guys do, you've definitely listened to all the bootlegs over the years and just picked up all the different parts so you can put together just a killer live show, like you were saying, and I'm sure it's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, for sure. I've spent a lot of time not only like collecting these bootlegs, and spending a fortune on them just to like have it be pointless because they're all on the internet now.
Yeah, same. I know
and there's community.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is crazy, but yeah, I'm pretty familiar with the bootlegs, and it always seems like there's every once a couple of years there's one that comes along. It's like I haven't even heard of that one, but
Yep.
the thing about the bootlegs is, in '75, like you figure from basically since the release of this album in '75, they played KASHMIR like every show, I'm pretty sure, afterwards. So it became a staple in the set list. And they played it at the reunions too. They played it at the 40th anniversary of Atlantic Records, and they played it in 2007 at the O2 Arena with both times with Jason. So
yeah.
You could tell that the song was probably pretty important to them, It's a shame that technology, that for whatever reason they weren't able to do some of the songs like In the Light. They probably had technical limitations with Jones. I'm guessing is maybe why they didn't play it.
You'll hear that though. on Saturday.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool because they were pulling everything off as a 4-piece, and there's bands now that would, like the Who, for instance, to have all these extra musicians on
Yeah.
stage so they can pull off stuff live. But I mean, it's so much cooler when it's the core band just up there doing it.
Our guy, he's busy. We're still, he's got to go from like one keyboard to another keyboard. And it's
Oh
funny
yeah, I
because
watched.
he does the intro, then he's got to jump, and then he's, it's a lot of work, but he's really just watching both Dave and him is very entertaining in itself because they're doing, and that's it too. It's only us four. We don't have six guys, and we don't have 10 guys. We don't have no background music, no tapes, no nothing. It's just us four blasting it out, and we get a lot of compliments for that. And to be honest with you, almost like I do have a little bit of resentment for bands that are, that are putting the background music or the background vocals in. I think it's kind of a ripoff, in my opinion, especially if it's live. If you want to just play on TV and lip sync, that's one thing. But if I'm paying like $50 to $80 to see a live band, like they were talking about how the Eagles they're lip syncing now, and you're paying like $1,000
Wow.
to see them lip sync. I would be like, I don't know. To me, I feel like I'm being ripped off, and I think it's more. I'd rather see the musicianship of them trying to do it, then I don't care if you want to like I'm not trying to sound like an asshole, but if you want to listen to the record, then listen to the record. If you want to listen to a live band interpret it, then do it. But I don't want to hear, like you see some guy with a microphone that's 35 feet away from him, and he's got the same power as he did when it way down, you know what I mean? It's like something's not right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're doing all the songs in the original keys too. So
Yeah.
Gene is pulling it off, and then some.
Cool.
So
I got
Obi.
another.
Okay, go ahead.
No, if Ovi's got a question.
Do you have a question, Obi? You're good right now?
I'm good. I'm good.
Count. You get the question from Obi then.
So I just thought of this as I know we're all a little too young to have seen Led Zeppelin
Except for
live
me,
in
but
concert. Yeah.
I didn't get to go.
Even you, you were still.
I was
young,
close.
It would have been
close.
hard.
My
You could have
parents wouldn't let me go to New York City. I had a lot of friends that were at the Garden, but like, nope, you're not going, kid.
But in the '90s, I got to see Page and Plant at Madison Square Garden, and since some of you are from the area, I was just wondering if you guys any of you went to those shows that they did, because they made me 10 times more of a fan of Led Zeppelin after I went to those shows. I wasn't even on my radar when I went. My wife really loved them, and she was working with a person that was older, and she wanted to go really bad, so she bought the tickets, and it was kind of something I just ended up going to, and then it just blew my mind, and I just became 10 times bigger fan. So I just was wondering if any of you caught that show.
No,
I did. Yeah, I caught both. I caught both the Page and Plant tours, but the first solo act that I saw was, I'm trying to think, I think it was the Southern California Performing Arts Center in I want to say 88. I saw Robert Plant with the Now and Zen tour, and it was an outdoor stadium or whatever it was, arena, and he opened the show with In the Evening, and as soon as the opening started, I was like, this is In the Evening. It's like, okay, all right. So I didn't know, because back then you couldn't go on the internet and check out the set list before you went,
Yeah.
So it was a surprise, and that's awesome. But he opened with In the Evening, and he had a really, really good band. So that was my first time seeing a member of Zeppelin in concert. Oh, actually, no, that's not true. I saw The Firm in 85 at what was then called the Brendan Byrne Arena.
Yep, Meadowlands Arena. Yep, yep.
Yeah. So I actually saw Page in '85 with Paul Rogers on that first tour, and then I saw the second Firm tour too, and then trying to think what else I saw. Yeah, but I seen Page with the Black Crows. I saw them at the Irving Plaza, and that show blew my mind for one because the one thing that's the maybe the coolest element of Led Zeppelin is just Jimmy Page's stage presence, and the lights dim, the band comes out. It's Chris Robinson and Rich Robinson. The band comes out, and then everyone's going nuts. The whole place was like cheering and yelling, and I didn't think it could get any louder. And then Page came out, and it was like, holy shit, man! I think they opened that show with Celebration Day, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a crazy, right at the Irving Plaza. Such a small place to see.
Wow, yeah, it's a tiny place for that. Yeah,
I left that place. I left that place, and the back of my legs were killing me because I was on my toes to see, like for an hour and a half, standing on your toes.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a great show. I was close enough to see the settings. Not that I mean anything to make it. I was close enough to see the settings on Page's amps.
Wow.
But I'm not incredibly tall, so you got to kind of fight for your spot in that room.
Yeah, the Irving. If you're not right up front, it's not an easy place to see shows. I tell you, I used to play the hell out of that record, that Jimmy Page Black Crows, back when that came out in my record shop. That's a great record.
Yeah.
Cool. So I guess we can go to our homework assignment. Why our 3 favorite songs are from Physical Graffiti. Since Ovi hasn't talked much, I'm going to make you go first. Is that okay with everybody else?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll save the band for last, and they can hear what we've got to say. And we'll put David and Gene on at the final.
All the 3 songs right away?
3 songs right away. Just mention your 3 songs.
Okay, so my number 3 though will be People Turned Away, or I should say Down by the Seaside. I find that song just because it has so many cool different parts, and especially when you come to that part when people turned away and they kind of roll into that whole part. It's so cool, and it kind of like go forward, but like Robert Plant is kind of responding to the guitar, and forward and back is really cool. Number 2, I have Into the Light, because it's kind of, I don't know how to explain it other than it's a trip. It's kind of a journey, that song. And my favorite song is probably favorite song of Led Zeppelin ever, and that's The Rover.
Wow.
I hoped I so wish that could have been on Houses of the Holy, and House of the Holy song in itself too, but it didn't happen. So, but The Rover is just it's such a cool song. I mean, I wish they played that one live, but they didn't, as far as I know.
We're gonna hear it on Saturday, so.
Yeah, and he's got the exact sounds.
Cool.
Awesome.
It sounds just like
we have one of our members absent tonight, Denny Barth from the Aggression, and he's up in our Western Canadian, but he's playing hockey or coaching hockey tonight. His 3 songs, I figure I'll give him right now. The third one was Sick Again. The second one was In the Light. And the number 1 song was The Rover. I think you guys were picking on each other. Almost the same, but not the Seaside.
Yeah.
Did Denny say he saw Led Zeppelin? Did he say?
You know what? I didn't. I don't know. I didn't ask him that question. He may have back in the day, but I don't know. Yeah. Danny, if he was here, you guys.
No, you know what? I think he had a ticket when Bonham died. That was his story.
Like
was that he had a ticket.
I remember
Bonham died, and he still has the full ticket stub. I remember the story now.
I got that.
Yeah, you're right. I think I remember that when we did the episode concerts that didn't happen for us.
Yeah, that's what it was.
That's where it rang a bell. Yep.
I have a frame ticket. I have a family member that knew that I was in the band. He bought it a long time ago, and it's a collector's framed ticket of from the last show that Bonham was supposed to be at.
Yeah.
Wow.
Damn.
Tony Dio. my center square. How about your picks for the night?
So this actually is my favorite Led Zeppelin record. I'm much like David said, you know, I've that's always been the one I always go back to. But I used to work in a factory, and I brought a Walkman with me, and I would always bring extended play cassettes or whatever because you didn't have time to change them, you know. So I would always bring longs, and that one I would bring that all the time and listen to. I probably listened to it at least once or twice a week for a long period until I got it on CD.
All 15 songs fit on it too. You didn't need like two cassettes.
Exactly.
Like the
Song Remains the
CD
Same
was
on two cassettes. Yeah, and the CDs on two CDs. Exactly. Yeah. But I've always loved it. But of course I never got to see Zeppelin, but I did see the Black Crowes with Jimmy Page. I actually saw Page in Plan. I think that was around like late 90s or something, when we were 96 or something like that. I saw that. But actually I worked in the concert industry as a runner. The first show I ever worked was Black Crowes and Jimmy Page.
Wow.
And that was July 4th of 2000. And being green when I was there, I didn't know where I wasn't supposed to walk, you know, where I wasn't supposed to go. And one time I was just kind of trotting down this little walkway, and it was the dressing room areas. This was an old amphitheater they've rebuilt now. And they were like outside mobile units. Jimmy Page is standing in a doorway smoking a cigarette, and I just spotted him. I was like, oh God, there's Jimmy Page. I don't think I'm supposed to be down here, you know. But he had a doctor on the road with him. He had to get a prescription filled, and they sent me to this pharmacy to get a prescription filled for him. And I get there, and you couldn't pick it up because I had to have an ID to pick it up, because I guess it was a controlled substance or something. So the tour manager's not going to give me Jimmy Page's ID, you know. So he goes with me. He rides with me, and this girl rides with us, and I have no clue who she is. Turns out it was Kay Hudson. And she hadn't broke out. She had become a big star yet. I had no clue that was even her. She was dating Chris Robinson from the Crows at the time. You know, they ended up, of course, getting married. But so my three songs I'm going to pick. Number one is they were in no particular order, but I'm just going to go with "In My Time of Dying." I just love that. It's such a dark kind of that Delta blues. It's just dark and heavy. And I just love the slide guitar part in it. And then it just, Bonham's drums are just thunderous, and they come just crashing in. And, you know, Robert Plant, he really sells this man. He's on his dying bed, and he really sells it, you know. It's just such a heavy song. I actually have a bootleg tape of Coverdale Page. They only did a few shows in Japan live, and they do it. And Coverdale does a great job on it. I mean, it's really well done. But yeah, I just always loved that riff in that song. I always wondered if John Christ ripped that off for Twisted Cane from Danzig, because it's always what it kind of sounded like to me.
Yeah.
From there, I'm going to go with 10 Years Gone. Just a great ballad type song. I love the guitar harmonies in there. The licks in it, it's got a cool flange effect on the guitars. Robert Plant wrote this for a former girlfriend that kind of gave him the ultimatum, you know, it's either me or a music career. And of course, thank goodness he took the music career. And yeah, just a great song. I've always loved that one. And then of course, probably is my number one would be The Rover. I've always loved that one. There's a Houses of Holy outtake. Great drum intro on that. Just a menacing guitar riff from Page. I read where they said they never played it live except the opening part that they had used at the beginning that goes into like Sick Again. You guys probably do that in KASHMIR, I'm sure, or unless you play the whole song. But yeah, I've always dug that song. I remember being in junior high and kind of just getting into Zeppelin, and these dudes were in the school talent show. They had this band, and they didn't even have a singer. They were just a 3-piece, this instrumental, and they did The Rover. They just did an instrumental version of The Rover. And I'm just like, man, that's such a cool song. And somebody said, yeah, that's on Physical Graffiti. And I think that's the reason I went out and bought the record, because I liked it so much. But yeah, so that's going to be my top three. It's such a great album. So many great songs on that album.
So I never met Jimmy Page either, but I probably could have. I was at a show at Webster Hall, and it was a Mother's Day. I don't know how many years ago. It was before the pandemic, probably mid 2015, 2016, like somewhere around then. And I was going to see the band Graveyard. Graveyard was playing there. Couldn't get any of my friends to go. It was Mother's Day. I'm like, well, I went and visited mom earlier in the day, and I got in the car and went down, and I had a few drinks, and my friend was at a Ranger game. The Rangers were playing in the afternoon matinee. He got there a little late. He goes, "Did you see who just walked by you?" I'm like, "Uh-huh." He said, "You just see there was a couple big guys, big guys walking by with someone." And he said that Jimmy Page just walked past you. And I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "No, no." And then Sydney Anna Taylor, who been on this channel, was on Pete Pardo's Hudson Valley Squares. Her father was outside and got a picture with Jimmy Page.
Wow.
Jimmy Page was
Yeah.
a fan of Graveyard, went to the show, went to their merch booth, and bought, I guess, a record or something there. And I remember Graveyard said Great North American Tour was an honor to have Sir Jimmy Page at the place. So I was in the same room with him, but I didn't get to meet him. And I would
You didn't see the giant dragon on his jacket?
No, I don't
His
think he
whole
was.
outfit?
I don't think he was wearing that
Oh,
night.
he wasn't wearing.
He was walking by with a couple of his security team, and one outside was waiting for a cab, and that's where Sydney's father got a picture of him. So that was my little story.
Amazing.
Sorry to off to James.
All right. So, yeah, this is probably my favorite Led Zeppelin album, too. I didn't get into this one till a little bit later. When I was in my early adolescence, going into my teens, I don't know why, but I always felt that there was like you either liked Sabbath or you liked Led Zeppelin. I don't know why, but it was always kind of a thing where I loved Sabbath more, so I always kind of put Zeppelin on the back burner. I first heard Zeppelin grabbing my brother's vinyl for Zeppelin 4 and putting it on the turntable when I wasn't supposed to be touching his vinyl or the stereo. But I put that on, and I put on side 2 first by accident because I didn't know, the difference between side 1 and 2. So I heard Misty Mountain Hop, and I went, oh, this is really cool. I'm going to record this. So I made a recording of it, and I got into that. And then down the line, my sister gave me a copy of Zeppelin 2 on cassette, and I loved that. And then one morning, me and a buddy of mine who were playing guitar together, we were trying to get a band going. He got this album, and I had never heard it before, and we're warming up, getting ready to play. And the night before, we had tied one on and had a lot of drinks and did some other nefarious things during the evening as well. And we were both hungover. And man, as soon as I heard the opening licks to In My Time of Dying, I'm like, I need to get this fucking album. So it became an album I became obsessed with and listened to a lot. And for me, it's also one of my favorites because there's not too many played out songs on it. There's like one big giant hit on it, and the rest of it is all kind of songs you have to be a fan of the band to know.
True.
So my number 3 is going to be the Wanton song. And I'm throwing that in there because my 2 and my 1 are from disc 1 of the album, and I wanted to kind of represent disc 2. But it's really just a killer, upbeat, funky, groovy song. I love the groove with the stutter stepping riffs in there. Like there's references to that I could hear in like Crowbar and Kiss, and Bands like that. Pantera, there's parts where I can hear where they start a groove, but then they pull the groove back a little bit and kind of stutter step on the riffs. It's really killer. I really wanted to say Trampled Underfoot, but I went with Wanton Song because it's a killer, groovy, funky tune.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, The Rover. Killer song. We've all said how awesome it is. That's another one that's got really cool, sort of like it grooves, but then it drags you back a little bit. And very trippy, very kind of psychedelic sort of riff wise. Very cool to listen to under the influence of leafy green medicinal herbs. And my favorite song on this is In My Time of Dying. It's the song that made me want to get the album when I heard it. I love how bluesy it is, but then there's also a gospel element to it. I could see why it's Gene's favorite song to sing live, because the vocals completely shine in this song, and it's a real standout moment for Robert Plant, where the "Oh my Jesus, oh my Jesus," like I could see why that's the tune you want to do live, and just that that sliding, grimy, bluesy riff. It just always, every time I hear it, it reminds me of being hungover, and it's like the perfect soundtrack for waking up and just like one eye open, and you had way too many the night before, and it just sounds like that to me because that was my experience with it. And wow, Tony Dio just blew my mind saying that it reminds him of Twisted Cane. I never put that together, and I love Danzig. And now I'm never going to be able to unhear that.
If you play if you started playing the riff, you'd go, "Wait a minute, this is Twisted Cane."
Yeah, yeah. I'm hearing it in my head now. It's so cool that you brought that up.
That's fine.
There's other things. There's other connections with Danzig and Led Zeppelin too. There's other connections.
Oh yeah, with the Hunter and all that. Sure. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah,
I caught that right away the first time I heard that, the Hunter, but I never put together In My Time of Dying with Twisted Cane. That's so fucking cool.
Cool.
So yeah, that's my 3, 2, and 1. I could have went with there's no bad moments on this. I love 10 Years Gone, Sick Again. Just there's nothing on this that sucks at all.
No.
And such a good for me. This is a great comeback from Houses of the Holy, because I am not really a fan of that album.
Oh man, that's a great album.
I like it.
I like half of it, and then the other half of it I want to throw out the window.
Sorry to hear that. But thanks, James.
So the Holy is a masterpiece.
Count Ralphus. You just can't take a picture of Houses of the Holy and put it on social media because you'll get flagged.
True.
Yeah. Anyhow, Count Ralphus.
I love Houses of the Holy, and this ain't my favorite album, but it's. I mean, I haven't really sat there and tried to figure out what my favorite album is. There's so many freaking great albums. I got that original die cut that Steve was talking about earlier in the episode, where you pull it out and it's got all the different pictures, and you got the back of the album too, so you can have the back. You got 2 of these, so you could switch them around, turn them around, and get the people. Like on my back, I got like Buzz Aldrin and Lee Harvey Oswald. Yeah. But on the front, once I realized that King Kong was in this upper window, that he's always been. I got the King Kong tattoo.
King Kong's got the view.
Yeah, so you'll never see this in my collection without King Kong looking out the window. But and I got the original CD, came in these big bulky 2-case thing. Remember these things? Now you get it in a little you get it in a tiny little digipack now. Yeah. And I got the original cassette, which is cool that it all fits on there, no problem. This was friggin' hard. Like Steve was saying earlier, you listen to it the first time and you got your 6 songs to go through, and then the next time it's 8 songs. It's supposed to go down, but it's it goes up. So I'm doing a little bit of cheating. I see James kind of did a tiny bit of what I'm gonna do, but so my number three, I'm gonna go. It was like between KASHMIR and Houses of the Holy. I think they're the two big hits on the album. Of course, Houses of the Holy should have been on the album called Houses of the Holy, but it was later put on to this one because they wanted to fill up the make it a full length or two double album. So, but yeah, I have to go with KASHMIR. It's so epic. I could totally understand why they used that as the name of the band and for the tribute because what an epic friggin' song. You know, you got Zeppelin's got so many great epics like that, like Stairway to Heaven and all that stuff. But it's it's a great one. It's right up there with them, and it's played on the radio all the time, but still, it's amazing. Then I was going between Trampled Underfoot and In My Time of Dying, but I gotta go with In My Time of Dying. It's like funk versus the blues. They're both great. They're both both of these songs are just amazing. And then for my number one, it was between the Rover and Wonton song. And I love wonton soup, so I went with wonton song. I don't know if it's but I just both of those songs are so freaking awesome, and they don't get talked about enough. So I really love I'm gonna have to go with the wonton song, but Rover's right up there with it.
Cool.
Both rocking.
So you gave us your number one and your number three and your
number
two.
So I actually gave you. I gave you six.
You also gave us your companion.
James did that. James did that for one song, so I was like, I didn't feel as bad doing it.
I have the 2015 reissue, which has the companion record that has some of the the different recordings on. But yes, so yeah, and that has the cutout too, because I remember in 2015 that was a big deal. They were remastering and putting out all the albums with an extra album they called the companion. So
I was just going to jump in and say with James, when I too was in the Black Sabbath camp, and it was like it was that over here too with the Zeppelin and the Purple, or you were in the Sabbath and we were in the Sabbath camp.
And that was same with me too. And I was a lot older than both these guys, and it was the same thing for me. It was the Sabbath and Zeppelin, and a lot of people like both of them, but you definitely wanted to choose like a side kind of, and I was on the Sabbath side, but now I just love them both so much.
Well, there is the fabled story about the Zeppelin and Sabbath jam that supposedly happened that nobody knows.
Supposedly there's a recording.
Ooh, that would be so awesome to hear.
Yeah, supposedly Tony Iommi's got a tape of that somewhere.
It would just be such a cocaine-fueled whiskey.
Oh, you know it.
Mess.
You know it.
That's why they rather just like let you think about what it would sound like.
Yeah.
Everybody else has said where they came into Zeppelin, and like first time I heard Zeppelin, I'm not just going to say anything more because it's kind of a blast for me. I'm just going to say Godzilla, the movie from the 90s.
Wow, P. Diddy and fucking.
So you heard the Puff
Daddy
song.
the P. Diddy. Yeah.
That is blasphemy.
Sabbath was a dead win for me back then because I didn't know Zeppelin.
That's the worst thing Jimmy Page ever got involved with was that fucking song. That's the worst fucking thing.
I'll be that. We're gonna silence you for the rest of the night.
There is a fantastic Rage Against the Machine song on that soundtrack, though. I know I'll get some boos there, but there's a great Rage song on that Godzilla soundtrack.
Anyhow.
But it didn't put Lewis to
cold on his assignments, and I was like, this is going to be easy for me because everybody else has been saying their favorite their Zeppelin album, and for me it's Presence. So for me, this assignment was easy enough. But if it's been Presence, I would have a big problem with.
I like Presence.
Yeah,
I guess I'll give my top three, and we'll move on to these guys so we can wrap this up. Because I'm sure they've got other things to do than hang out with us in the Rock Fantasy Files. But anyhow, so I'm going to go with and I'll talk a little bit about high school because I'm old enough to go to high school when this was all. It was, I was there in 74, 75. There was definitely cliques of kids that would listen to Zeppelin. There were cliques of kids that listened to Sabbath. I think the kids that were into the Zeppelin were more like Aerosmith, stuff like that. The Deep Purple and the Black Sabbath kids were more together. And tell you what, you put this album on when you were hanging out with a chick from back then. Like they liked the Zeppelin. more than the Sabbath. So I'm my little piece on that. So I'm gonna go with my top three. I could have. It was really hard to narrow down because I love that Ovi mentioned "Down by the Seaside" because I really like that song, and I like how it speeds up and "Don't Turn Away" and "Houses of the Holy." But I'm gonna go with "Kashmir" for my number three. I'm gonna go "In My Time of Dying" for number two, and I'm going with the Wonton song for number one.
Nice.
And that changed around all week, and I'm still going to listen to this record as I prepare to go see these guys on Saturday because I'm been just revisiting this record and just loving it, and it's going to be great to hear it in its entirety with these guys on Saturday. So, but anyhow, let's throw this over to David. Now we're going to put you on the spot, get your three favorite songs, and then we'll get Gene's, and we can wrap this up for this episode of Rock Fantasy Files. Thanks for everybody for coming on tonight.
It's funny because the theme seems to be the Wanton song, "In My Time of Dying," and like "Trample Underfoot," or it's all the songs that are the most fun to play on that album. The Wanton song, "In My Time of Dying," and in the Rover, So I think those are probably number three would probably be "In My Time of Dying."
Okay.
Number two would be the Rover, and then number one would be the Wanton song. And I'm basing that not on like what I enjoy listening to, it's what I enjoy playing.
Okay.
Because those songs are incredibly challenging for sure. And as far as like the Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin thing, it's like I enjoyed both their catalogs. And, I mean, for me, Ian Pace from Purple, and then Bill Ward and Bonham, those guys basically invented the genre, along with like guys like Mitch Mitchell and Ginger Baker, obviously. But, those guys are like the early heavy hitters that sort of built the foundation on which all of what we do is sort of in the rock genre is sort of built on, So I would, my appreciation for the work that those three or four guys did is pretty endless without a doubt. So, but those would be my three as well.
Excellent. And I guess we're going to finish off this episode with Mr. Robert playing himself, Gene.
I would say number three is "In the Light," just for the fact that I remember it's almost like anywhere, any place, anytime, when you hear the beginning of that song, just that it puts you in zone, and that's it. Like anything that you were doing, anything that was going on, you're totally distracted. You get sucked in, and I see that when we play, and I feel that every time I hear that song. So for that reason, "In the Light" is number, and the lyrics are actually very good, especially for what's going on in the world today. I like I said, we really like to push out the spirit of Led Zeppelin, and I really like to try to push out an energy to the audience, and in return, they give it back. Then I would say my second favorite is "Night Flight," just because "Night Flight" to me as a vocalist is the hardest Led Zeppelin song to sing. You have to take like the biggest deep breath before you sing that because you really don't get a lot of time, especially towards the middle. And the range we got as a singer, I call it chest voice and head voice, and that's all chest voice. And you really got to have the testicles to do that. And it's not like you can't get away with like a higher pitch. You got to really push it out. And there's no mercy if you don't do it. If it comes out wrong, it's you're going to blow a tire. So that to me is like whenever anybody is like claims to be this great singer or this or that, you just say, "Oh, like how are you with Night Flight?" And that for that question. And then like I said, my favorite is "In My Time of Dying." It's the same thing. When you hear that song, it puts you in this like you're out of space, out of time, and the message that he's saying, it just to me is like, I would love that to be played at my, when I'm buried, if I'm going in the ground, uh,
Mm.
that they have giant speakers that play that up to the heavens so that
Oh, wow.
somebody might want to listen to it and
Yeah.
maybe I get a little influence it in the process.
Cool. Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
You're talking about Ended Light. I was actually, I almost picked that as one of mine because that song it's like you said, you're in a zone. It's a very somber, it's a very dark song. And then that last riff comes in and it's like a bright riff. It's like this ray of light just shines down and gives you hope,
Yeah.
in the song.
It's a
Yes.
song. It is. It's a hope. It's very hopeful, and sharing that with people.
Yeah.
Like that's one. I think that was one of the things that Zeppelin did in the '70s. You had Vietnam, you had Nixon, almost the same struggles that we're going through now. It's just a
Mm.
different interpretation, but they took people away from that, put them, in the land of elves and magic, and you went there, and then you didn't think about any of that. And your person that you didn't, you had a person of one political party next to you, and they were sitting there, nobody got into those fights, and nobody
Mhm.
got to those. Everybody was in the zone. I call
Yeah.
it the zone. And
Yeah.
that's what we are trying to do is for the 2 hours that we're playing,
Yeah.
you're not even thinking about stuff. You're just, you're not even on your phone. You're there, you're in the spirit. And
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to do.
Cool.
Well said.
Awesome.
Well said.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
Yeah.
then you're coming to Middletown on
Cheers, brother.
Saturday, and if, where are you guys heading next after the Middletown date?
We have several shows in Naples, Florida.
Nice.
Pretty cool. And then we go we're busy. We got Elevation and we got a place called Phoenixville, which is near Philadelphia.
Yep.
And then we have Virginia Beach. And then we're all the way up in New Hampshire. And then we're going to be working our way to Cuba and
Mhm.
beyond. So should be interesting.
And for
Steve,
those,
you gotta put like post up the link to that
Oh,
little
yeah.
promo that they have because that's
Mm.
amazing. It shows how powerful these
the
guys are.
promo, yeah, I shared that
Yeah,
around
that
today. Yep. Yep.
promo is amazing.
Yep. I got
These
that up
guys
here
sound
too.
really amazing.
And
If you go to
yep.
ledzeppelintribute.com,
Okay.
it's easy, ledzeppelintribute.com. We have videos, we have our tour schedule. We
Mhm.
even have you could click on the tour schedule and it can get you access to where you can buy tickets at
Awesome.
any of the venues.
I checked it out today. You could also do like the band bio and see what everybody's where they're all
Mhm.
from and all that.
Cool.
Really
We
cool.
Nice.
we have merch too.
That's a nice shirt you got on there. I was trying to make out what you were
Should have
wearing.
worn my shirt. I'm sorry.
That's a cool one.
Mine's in the laundry because I wore it the other day. So
There you go.
You bring the tattoo though, so that's
yeah, I
Yeah.
do have a tattoo. Yeah.
Well, anyhow, this kind of wraps up this episode of Rock Fantasy Files, and it was an honor to have the members of KASHMIR on. It was something different, and thanks everyone. Mention your favorite tracks from Physical Graffiti in the comments, and I hope to see each and every one of you that live in the area out on Saturday night. Stop by Rock Fantasy first, and maybe we'll even hang out. It's my employee Frank's birthday, so we're gonna have a good time at the show and hang out in Middletown that night. So we'll see you guys next week again on the Rock Fantasy Files.